Hey, so in this video I'm going to do something different. So far we have looked through code words, okay, and learn how we can, through the fundamentals, using fundamental things, solve all kinds of problems. Now the problems were very simple, just to give us a feel of how to work with a simple operation, the fundamentals of C#. And in this case I want to do something else. I actually want to use what we learned so far through the kata in code word for those questions, and use this knowledge inside a Unity project. So what you can see is as a Unity IDE, the Unity editor, and we're going to create usually we use this tool to create games. In this case we use it to show how the code can be used to actually create something which is visual, which we can look at. So let's say we are working on building a chessboard game, okay, a chess game, and we need a chessboard. So let's start with using what we've learned, using things like using a boolean, using if statement, using loops, using modulo even, to create the board games. So how will we do that? So first of all, I want to I'm doing something here which I'm putting here the tab of the game, which is this is how the game would look, and this is the scene where we build the game. So this is the very basic idea, and what we're going to do here is I'm going to make sure the aspect ratio is 10:10. Okay, so this is the aspect ratio, and actually this point is the 0, 0. It's the I forgot the name, how it's called, but this is where the camera is, it's the 0, 0, and we'll use it. So maybe I would like to move the camera so we can see a board of 8x8. So I'll do something like this. I'll move it to, I think 4x4. Okay, so each square here is representing 1x1, so 4x4 would place it like this, and if we put the squares here of the board of the chessboard, it will look pretty good. Okay, so let's see how we can do that. So I'll just save it for now, and I want to start to create it. So first of all, when we build game, we create assets, we create sprite to build the game itself. So I'll start doing these things. And you don't need to remember it or focus on it, just focus on what we'll do later with the code. So I want to create a single square of the board. I'll go to 2D objects, and I'll start with sprite, and I'll go for square. And it actually creates a square, which I think is by the size of 1 by 1. And to place it in a good position, I will actually put it in a 0.5, 0.5 for it to be in the middle of square. Okay, so this is very nice, and we actually, to fill the whole board, we need 8x8, right? So in Unity we can create this kind of object. So we have this object which is the square. In the inspector we see the name square. We have the sprite renderer, which is the image that represents the square, and we can actually do things like change the color. Okay, but for now it's fine. So I just return it to white. Okay, and we can continue and build the board. So I'll do something like this. I'll move it here. This is the project, and this is create a prefab. A prefab, it's like a template of an object, and I'll just keep it as square, and I'll really use it to build the board. So to build the board, I will create an empty object, which will be the board manager. I'll write it like this, and I created an empty object. Now an empty object, you can see here, it actually has just a position 0, 0, 0. It has nothing else because it has no graphics, and that's okay. All we need for it is the code, and this is the way we start working with code in C#. So if what we went through so far is a bit confusing, that's okay. It's the first time we look at actually working on Unity project, actually using C# to build something. Anyway, so for the board manager being able to work with code and do any kind of logic, we have to add a script for it. And the script is like a code in C#, and we'll call it board manager with the same exact name. Okay, I do create an add, and it will actually add it here. And for now, I wouldn't do anything else without it. I just want to open it and use it. Okay, so let's start doing some Unity game programming. I'll start with this. So, okay, so first of all, I want to have a reference for the square so I can create many squares. So I'll do like, I'll do it this way. It's not the best way to do it, but a public game object represent any object that we can have in the game object, I call it square ref, and I'll put it as null at the moment. Okay, so this will be used to create the whole board by creating 8 by 8 like this. Okay, so this is null, and I can actually instantiate it. Instantiate is create a copy from this object, and this will be the reference, the prefile we created before. So how do we do it? We actually will do it in the start function, and we want to do a double loop. Why a double loop? Because we have 8 in chessboard, we have 8 lines and 8 columns, right? So let's do it like this. So it's a for loop going from, let's do it with int I, starting from 0, going all the way to I smaller than 8, I++. This is similar to what we've seen before in the loop, but this time we start with 0, okay, and we do another loop inside. So let's say this is, for example, in the column, for the row, and this is the column. So for the column would be j, int j equals to 0, j smaller than, while j is smaller than 8, so it will go from 0, 1, 2, all the way to 7, and when it gets to 8, j will no longer be smaller than 8, so it will leave this loop. Okay. Again, j++, and that's great. So this is the rows. I'll just put a comment, and this is the columns. Okay, and we want to be able to place them. So to be able to place them, I will use a float. Float is a floating point variable, and start with x equals, let's do it 0. No, let's start with so it will be temp x and temp y, and I'll calculate it in every step. Okay, so we have here the I for the rows and the j for the column. So column will affect the x and the rows will affect the y. And here we can use the I and the j to calculate the exact position, but first we need to create it. So what we'll need to create is game object. I'll call it square, and it will be an instantiation of square f. Okay, and it will place it in temp x, temp y. That's great. We just need to calculate the temp x and the temp y. So let's start with the x. So the x is affected by column, so it will be temp x would be equal to j for now. Okay, and about the row, so temp y will be the I. This will probably actually work because the square is 1 by 1, so we can just take the indexes. Okay, so this is ready, and this should put the squares on the screen. Let's test it out. So this is the code that is attached to the board manager object, and the start function is called on the first frame. So the first time we start the game and it shows this object, it will go to the start and it will run this code. So let's have a look. So back to Unity. For it to work, I need the board manager. The board manager to have a reference for the square ref. So I'll just take the square from here and put it here. I know it's really different from the code word, but stick with me. We just start in just the first example. Okay, so we use the square here, and we have the board manager, and we no longer need this one because it will use this one and create the multiplication. Okay, so let's start. Just play it. Okay, this will just run the game and create all the square, and look, it actually created a board, but it's not in the exact position, but we can actually work with it. This is fine. Okay, now the problem is all the square looks the same. All the squares are white. Okay, and we want to do something a bit different. So maybe we can do, and let's think of it that the odd squares, not exactly odd, but the first square will be white, and the next square will be black or something like that. Okay, so let's try it out. So we have this square, and we want maybe to create a copy of it. So I'll just right-click here, and I don't see a duplicate, but I'll just do another thing. I can use Control-D, and it will duplicate, or so I'll call this just a dark square. So dark square, I can put it in black. Okay, I'll double-click it open here, and I can change the color to black. Okay, so now I have dark square and a regular square, and if I'll go back to the code, okay, I can actually add another square F. So I'll rename this by using the factor to let me rename him. So a light square F. Okay, I don't really care about this. I'll fix it. So we have light square F. I'll duplicate this line, and let's use a dark square ref. Okay, so this is ready. I need to fix it in Unity. Okay, so I'll go back to this one. Okay, and okay, and I'll go to the board manager, and I want to put the two references here. So we have the light one and the dark one. Now it still uses only the light one, so if I run it, okay, it would just instantiate the light one. Okay, that's great. So everything white. Now we want it to use the dark square. And this is when it gets tricky, and we have to use the things we learned. So how do we know if it should be a light or dark? So let's think about this. Let's say that in the first line we'll have, okay, let me just do some kind of things here inside comments. Okay, and I'll use, okay, and I'll use, okay, O for white and X for black. Okay, so maybe we'll have something like that in the first line. Okay. And then on the second line it will be the other way around. Yes. Okay. So Copilot is doing that. Is doing this. So let's see what's happened. So here, let's start with this one. So here it's 0, 0, then 0, 1, then 0, 2. Okay. So 0 is the line, and the 1, 2, and the other one is the column. Okay. So, I want to understand, I want to find a way to know whether it should be light or gray. So here I'll just mark the white one, so 0, 0, no, not that, okay, 0, 2, 0, 3, 0, 4, and 0, 6. In this case, we'll have it on, it will be 1, 1, 1, 3, 1, 5, 1, 7. Okay, and here we'll have 2, 0, 2, 2, 2, 4, 2, 6. Now, why do I actually, and I write all the indexes that should have Y square. Now, why did I do that? This is a very good way to check the data and try to find pattern that will help us. And because I did this only for what should be a light square, I can notice, if I take the X plus the Y, okay, I always get an even number for the white one, okay, for the light square. And if I always get an even number, I can actually use the modulo to decide whether to use the light square ref or the dark square ref. Okay, so let's try it out. So we'll do something like this. So let's do a game object ref square. Okay, and this will be equal and equal. Let's do it equal to null. I'll do it in more lines than I can do it in one line, but I'll do it in few lines, and it's actually complete here. So if it tries something else, it probably will work, but we found a better solution, shorter solution. So if I plus j, okay, both of this, modulo 2 equals 0. So the sum of I and j is an even number, and we've seen this in previous videos, how to use the modulo, the remainder of the division, to find if it's an even number or odd, right? So we can use this information right here. So we use it here, and if it's even, we want it to use the light one, right? So we do the square. Okay, we do a game of square equal this one, and else, so else it's odd, so we can use the dark one. Okay, now we don't really use the square, so we can remove it. We can just use the instantiate for now. Maybe later in the game, when building the game, we will want something a bit smarter, but for now, just for building the board, this should work. Okay, so let's go back to Unity and see if everything works as we expected. I always tell my student, you have to check your assumption. I mean, you try things out, and it seems logical, but sometimes it works, and sometimes it needs a bit more work or a better understanding. So, but I'm pretty sure this one would work. Let's have a look. And look at this, we actually got the board. Now, we can use the same thing, by the way, to do something else, like, let's zoom out. We can do something else, like if we wanted to have like diagonals of enemies, we can actually do about the same kind of formula, but this works really nice, so let's just have another look on the code and remember how it resembles other things we did. So first of all, we use these things to understand the right formula, to understand if we want to use a light square or a dark square. And this works great. And we had a double loop, okay? So we're going over the I and over the j, so we start with I equals 0, and then we got like, so it will be, I'll put it in the comments. So we start with 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 2, etc., right? And then we do the same for 1, for the line number 1, and so on. Okay, so when you have a loop inside loop, you go inside the first loop, and then you go inside the internal loop, and you repeat in the internal loop until it's finished. So j going from 0 to 8, then it finishes. I go to 1 again, I go to 2 again, j goes from 0 to 7 actually, goes again, and that's the way you go. And for each index this way, we place the square. We've seen this formula to decide, are we going to use the light version or the dark version? And how many square did we create? So we create 8 for the internal loop, times 8 for the external loop, so 64, which are all the squares you need for a backgammon or chess board. Okay, so this works great, and that's what I want to show you. So again, we had the if and the else. We have the use of modulo. We have the use of a loop, and we've seen another thing, which is understand the information of the question to find the right way to do it. Now, this whole instantiate thing is a function for Unity, and this is, of course, much more complex and has more things to think about than working with code words. The big advantage that you can actually see on the screen, how the use of our knowledge, the use of the things we learn from using code words to learn the fundamental, can actually be used to create something visually that works. And that's what I really love about programming, creating something that we can watch, we can see how it works and how this code turn things into reality. Okay, so thank you very much for joining this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Please write me a comment, a like, share, subscribe. Okay, and I'll see you in the next video.